What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Battle League content. In today's video, we're taking a look at a super strong team I played in the Great League Remix Cup featuring my boy Skeledirge. As you know, I'm a simp for Skeledirge, and honestly, I saw so many people playing Poliwrath, Charjabug, Skarmory, that it felt like Skeledirge was a really good fit for the meta. Obviously, alignment will always be an issue. This is a bit of an RPS meta. You run into a Whiscash lead, well, that sucks. But if you run into any of the other three Pokemon that I listed, which were more common to me than the Whiscash leads, you're going to be in a good spot. Team's super strong. What we play is we got a Skeledirge in the lead to core break, and then we've got the Gligar Lickitung core in the back. Let's check out these battles in the Great League Remix and see how the team fares. Starting off with a lead into Dragonair, not a good lead. This is definitely a bad lead for this team, right? So what I like to do here is I pivot immediately into Gligar because you can get to that Aerial Ace before the opponent's going to be able to get to their first charge move. Just being able to outpace in this matchup really helps set the tone. It enables you to kind of desync the switch timer. Also, if the opponent maybe doesn't have an answer to Gligar, I bet you that there is a Poliwrath and or a Charjabug back there, by the way, that they are not swapping out. So I know that I can outpace my opponent staying in. So I actually win the 2 shields with Gligar, even a turn behind. My opponent lets it go. That's fine. There's the Poliwrath in the back, what I tell you. And now I'm going to be able to get to the next Aerial Ace. The opponent is incredibly weak in the back to Gligar, apparently. As I go for this Aerial Ace, the opponent is going to continue going for that movement. They just let it go. That's all right. You know what? Gligar does that sometimes. It's just so good. And then there's the Skarmory. That's what I'm talking about. Now, y'all, you might hear it in my voice. I'm a little bit raspy. I had COVID while I was on vacation visiting the family, and that really jacked up my my chest, my throat. Had a bad cough. I still have it. So if I end up coughing randomly through this video, you'll know why. But we use the Gligar as our closer typically. Lickitung is going to be the damage sponge on this team, and we get a good lead here into the Skarmory. So it's just me trying to mind my Incinerate timing, Disarming Voice. My opponent is clearly looking to shield in this matchup, so I'll give him my other shield as well. They're very weak in the back to Skeledirge, otherwise they would have swapped out and tried to preserve the Skarmory, but they just said, I'm done. So they were incredibly weak in the back. I didn't just cherry pick battles. I literally took a couple of sets and put them in here. I played like a day's worth of sets and I put the battles together. So there we have a Charjabug and a Vigoroth save swap. Very, very weak to Skeledirge, but I make a misplay here. That Vigoroth is so far ahead on energy. What I've started to do, because I know that my Gligar is such a good answer to Charjabug, I've actually stayed in and played this matchup out with Skeledirge and just won it. Because it's just much easier to be able to do so. When your first Incinerate ends, the opponent's already got 2 to 3 counters worth of energy. It just makes it incredibly difficult for you to come back with them having so much of an energy lead, even though it's only 3 counters. With something like Vigoroth that takes 5 moves to get to, that it takes 5 moves to get to that body slam. They get there pretty quick. Opponent comes in now with a Jellicent, and thankfully, they don't have a hard answer to Lickitung on this team. They do have a harder answer to Skeledirge, but with this much energy, Skeledirge is going to be able to get 2 Shadow Balls off before the opponent's going to be able to get to even 1 Surf. So what I'm looking to do here is I'm going to get both Shadow Balls off, go to Lickitung immediately, and either absorb the energy or the opponent's going to be forced to bring in that Charjabug, which they do. And this is a losing matchup for Charjabug in even shields and even energy, with Lickitung having 2 shields and a lot of energy loaded before it even swapped in. So it's not a good matchup for Charjabug, unfortunately. So I'm going to be throwing these body slams here. I need to come out of this matchup with a Power Whip or so I can shield if I need to. I'm not going to necessarily need to save the shields for the Jellicent because the Surfs don't really do that much damage, but I would like to save a shield. I think I can farm down here, and I'm going to try to. And in doing so, I will have that Power Whip loaded for the Jellicent when it comes back in. Opponent's going to throw a Surf, that's fine. I'm pretty sure they had about 2 loaded as they did some extra hexes, so I'm going to go for good timing in these moves. I'm really not worried at this point about my shield because I can get this Power Whip off, put the Jellicent super low, opponent concedes the match, and that's going to be a good game well played. I can feel it. I can feel my throat, my chest, and all of it. Oh, God. Anyway, not such a great lead here with Toxapex. Excuse me, there it is. I know that it takes them 8 poison jabs to get to that first brine, so I'm going to throw a Shadow Ball here, and then I'm going to dip into my Lickitung to absorb the energy if they choose to throw it, which they do, and we're going to just let this go. I have no need here. I'm just going to let it go. Hopefully the opponent is not so strong in the back to Skeledirge, and then they bring out a Guzzlord, and I kind of feel like I'm going to lose at this point. Not going to lie. So we'll see how this plays out here. Lickitung is going to do some decent chip damage here with these body slams, but the problem here is that I don't really have an effective way to take out the Guzzlord. Even though my opponent decides not to shield, they're going to throw energy here, which means I'm definitely not getting to another body slam. Excuse me, before they go. Dude, I'm telling you, dude, it sucks. COVID sucks. If anybody saw my tweet like a week and a half ago, it sucks. It messes with you just even after you've been sick. Opponent's got enough energy to get off 2 Dragon Claws here. And so I'm going to shield up one of them because I kind of have to, right? And I'm going to try and trust in my Skeledirge, possibly, but there's a Gnair on the other side of the field. So this is a very dangerous game. And at this point, I've honestly, I remember when I played this game, I actually forgot what their lead was. So I bring back in my Skeledirge, hoping I can get to the Disarming Voice, but I'm kind of forced to shield now. It's really unfortunate. Because I want to go for the Disarming Voice. My opponent makes an amazing catch. I should have just gone straight for the move. My opponent makes a very, very nice read, catches the Disarming Voice. They won't be close enough to another Brine before I get to the Shadow Ball, but at this point, the Dragonair can just farm me down. They can throw a move into my Gligar, and I'm kind of done. They have a shield advantage. Opponent played that very well. Plus, I didn't really have anywhere for my Skeledirge to go. That whole team just kind of dunked on it pretty hard. So that was a very good, well-played game to my opponent. They did kind of trash on my poor Dirge, though. I also forgot how to speak. The Dirge. Okay, there we go. So, opponent comes in with a Poliwrath. Now, because, once again, I'm remembering what happened with that Vigoroth game. Gligar's a very good check to Gligar, or Gligar's a very good check to Charge-a-Bug. So, I can stay in here, and I can just go and play this matchup out with Skeledirge. Opponent, not doing super great against Skeledirge at the moment, but I would imagine that they've probably got better Pokemon in the back. Now, I make a huge mistake here, which I don't do again after this game. I just come in with my Gligar to try and snipe, but unfortunately I don't get it, and I take a ton of damage in the process. Thankfully, I don't get an attack drop, but my opponent now can come back in with this Charge-a-Bug, and they can honestly get a ton of energy off farm down. Now, I look to try and over-farm because I expect them to try and farm me down. My opponent throws right away, which isn't the worst thing, especially when they have a Decidueye in the back, which is actually like Arceus himself just gifted me the best possible thing my opponent could have in the back. So they're going to take a little while to get to their first move. They're going to want to throw a Spirit Shackle at me here, new Community Day edition. It's not an elite TM move on Decidueye's part by any means, but I'm going to come in with my Lickitung just to, again, absorb the damage. My opponent's got some energy, so I don't want them to hit me with a Spirit Shackle, so I'm going to force them to throw these Frenzy Plants. One Incinerate's going to do more than enough to take out the Decidueye. They definitely don't have 2 Frenzy Plants and another Spirit Shackle at this point. So I'm going to be able to take this out, and then I should be able to get to the Shadow Ball. There it is. I was working on it. Don't judge me. And then one more Incinerate will do it. I have a shield. Easy game there. Unfortunately, my opponent kind of got dunked on with the Dirge. I'm telling you, Dirge is so good. And I even stay in for the... Look, all right. Skeledirge against Poliwrath. You don't think this is a good matchup, right? All I have to do is land one singular Disarming Voice, even if I'm double debuffed, if it's enough. So minding my timing here, right? Like, most opponents will typically just go straight Scald. So they're going to shield this up. They're going to hope they get the attack drop. It's not going to matter because the Incinerate damage plus even a debuff Disarming Voice is enough to take out Poliwrath. And I'm usually of the assumption here that my opponent has something weak in the back to Lickitung. You know, a lot of people, and I mean a lot, are running Charge-a-Bug. And I could probably bet money on like 9 teams out of 10 that are going to have it. Now, my opponent goes for Icy Wind here, and then they go for the Charge-a-Bug swap, which I do not fall for. I actually was looking to go for another Incinerate because I knew that they had less than, or they needed more than 5 counters, which is 2 Incinerates worth of counters to get to their next move. So I was going to go for 1 more Incinerate for energy and then throw. So I wasn't really falling for that catch, but it was a very nice attempt by the opponent. Now I'm just going to go for as much energy as I can, go for this dig, and probably not going to have too much of an issue taking out this Charge-a-Bug at this point because, yeah. So we're going to be able to get that farm down after the dig goes through. My opponent now has a Dragonite, and I try to go for a few more. I thought that I could make it, but apparently not. So that was unfortunate, but thankfully, because of all the energy I have loaded on my Skeledirge, I can easily go for the Disarming Voice. We're going to take out a Dragonite, and that's going to get the button too. Oh, yes. And then we get to go for the Disarming Voice against the Poliwrath, and that's going to be a good game. Well played to the opponent. Just absolute domination by Dirge. Excuse me. We're back. We got a Charge Bug on the lead, and I'm not even kidding you. Like, okay, yes. Let's take a minute because this is nothing new. We kind of already talked about this, right? Now, again, 10 Dragon Breaths. I'm not going to win this matchup at this point, so this may have been a mistake by me. But there are definitely teams that just hard counter this team, right? If you see somebody running a Whiscash lead or, you know, something that hard counters your Skeledirge, typically Whiscash, though, is the one that I lose. Like, I don't think I've won against a single Whiscash lead so far, so those will probably be difficult if you try to run this team. However, the idea on that is going to be you're going to want to try to put your Skeledirge in a position where it can get some farm, or just play out that matchup for a little bit. The problem is that a Mud Bomb basically, you know, takes Dirge down to a farm range. I've tried safe swapping the Gligar. That's probably the best case scenario, is just trying to safe swap Gligar immediately into the Whiscash and then hope to draw out that Skarmory. Skeledirge farms it down. You can use the energy to try and hit the Whiscash. It's really difficult, especially if the opponent just has a hard counter backline, which usually is what happens. So I will warn you all that if you do hit those Whiscash leads, you know, you'll probably hit, you know, a Skarmory in the back and just be miserable. But for the most part, I saw a lot more people running things like Charge Bug, Poliwrath, etc. So more often than not, I had good games with this team. In my first set with it, I chose not to include because it was a disaster of me trying to remember how to play after not playing this game for like 2.5 weeks. So, which happens, right? You know, I went on vacation to see my family, and I just was like, I'm not going to think about Pokemon Go for like 3 weeks. So that's kind of what happened there. Opponent is going to get taken out here. I just need to be able to survive the move to get the Jellicent by 1 turn. We get there. Good game, though, to my opponent. That was very close. Getting into the next game, we've got another Poliwrath lead. I'm going to play it out the same way as I did last time. We're going to stay in, which is really odd that, you know, you would think to stay in with a fire type against a water type. But Poliwrath having that fighting subtyping really helps these Disarming Voices threaten it. Again, the threatening, you know, they don't shield it, and then the Incinerates just take them out anyway. But at this point, I would consider swapping in Gligar at this point, just to be able to snipe it when I know they have less than, you know, 3 or 4 counters that they need to get to a move. But because I don't trust myself to be able to make that sort of situation after just coming back to the game after a couple weeks, I'm just going to stay in, play the matchup out. Now, I overfarmed, I think, a bit here. Or no, it was another game I'm thinking of. See, I'm crazy. But they come in with a Clefable, and this tells me immediately that they have no other answer to Skeledirge. So I'm going to throw the Shadow Ball here. This is going to do a ton of damage because they didn't shield it, and I immediately pivot into my Lickitung as a damage sponge, trying to get my Skeledirge out of there because it is debuffed, and so I can try and use it for later. Now, my opponent running Double Fairy, yeah, they kind of get smashed by Skeledirge. My opponent, maybe when team building, did not realize that Skeledirge does win the not even shields, but the 2 shield situations. Skeledirge wins against Poliwrath, at least in the Great League. So that's fine here. We're going to keep going for body slams. I mean, this game is pretty much wrapped up in steel. My opponent knows it, and they do concede, so good game. You got to get that water. Oh, no, this game. I put this game in. I got trashed, but I put it out of respect for my opponent. My opponent's got a Mew, and I usually assume that they're running, you know, Shadow Claw plus Surf plus Wild Charge, something like that. So my opponent has a Mew, and they bank up some energy, and then they bring in a Skarmory, and I'm like, ah. So when I get a Skarmory, I just throw as much energy on the Gligar as I can. I have no hope of winning this matchup. I'm just trying to maybe finesse my opponent into a situation where they want to throw their energy so they don't have it to throw into Skeledirge. The Skarmory does not win this if they don't shield any of these moves, right? If they try to go for a full farm down and don't shield, they will lose this matchup. But my opponent's throwing energy. I'm fine with that. I will probably have to shield my Skeledirge at least once, but I'm hoping that that energy is going to go somewhere. Yeah, opponent goes for a move here. They're going to go for the Brave Bird most likely, so I'll shield it up. And they do. One more Incinerate will take out the Skarmory, and then my opponent has a loaded Mew, so I immediately swap in to try and catch that Surf. Opponent goes for a charge move, And I don't know what this is, but I find out very quickly. It's a Focus Blast. So, yeah, I got trashed. I might have had a chance if I had shielded that. The Dedenne doesn't really have a great time here if both of my Pokemon have full HP, but at this point, they can just farm me down, discharge me to into oblivion. So, I mean, respect to my opponent. I would say well played, but I played it like a poor person. They played it very well. They took advantage of the fact that Mew is a very unpredictable Pokemon. Hit my Lickitung right where it hurt in his fat gut with a Focus Blast. Made him lose all of his fat. He just turned into a little flat, just flattened him out, turned into a little puddle, and then that's a good game. Ah! Missed it. Dragonite in the lead. Miserable. Gonna go straight to Lickitung here because I don't really want to deal with this matchup with Skeledirge, and I go immediately for a Body Slam. This is gonna do some decent chip damage here, or it's gonna pull a shield from the opponent, and they decide to shield up. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna shield up as well. It could go for Superpower and Dip at this point, which would make sense to me, so I'm shielding. And instead they go for the Dragon Claw, and then they swap into a Steelix. I remember this game now. I'm thinking, oh goodness, why is Steelix here? Opponent has the Breaking Swipe Steelix, but now it's a 50% chance. But of course, because it's me, it's going to debuff every time. So I get the debuff on my Lickitung here. I'm going to continue to go for Power Whips. I'm going to hope, excuse me, that because my opponent's doing very little damage with the Dragon Tails, my Power Whips and my Licks are adding up quite a bit here. So I'm going to go and come back in with my Skeledirge at this point. I'm a hard swap because I don't want them to farm all the way down. And I didn't think I'd counted to 8, but no, it was 8. So ouch. Right? Boom! So they can have it. That sucked. That really puts a hamper on things, but because my opponent swaps in a Poliwrath and I have a Gligar, they're both even, right? I just need to land one Aerial Ace and I win this matchup. So what I need to do is I need to keep my Gligar healthy. I'm going to look to overfarm by a little bit just because I know they're going to need 6, I believe, to get to their next Icy Wind. So I go for 5 more Wing Attacks and then throw the Aerial Ace. And then I have to remember as well that there is indeed a Dragonite in the back as well. So I also know that they just threw their energy, so I'm not going to try and be too fancy with it. I'm just going to throw the Aerial Ace here. And unfortunately, my opponent does get to a move, doesn't get to a move. But I'm able to swap in my Lickitung. I'm able to reset the debuff on my Gligar. I think if there was. I actually don't even remember. Yes, there was, because they hit me with an Icy Wind. And now at this point, I'm just praying that a Breaking Swipe doesn't KO. Just by a smidge. By a smidge. By the hair on Gligar's chinny chin. Able to take that match. And that's a good game. And this team is actually really strong. Like I said, you know, you're going to get some hard counter teams once in a while, but for the most part, this team was super solid. Did really, really well in the Great League REMIX, and I urge you to try it out if you like Skeledirge. So that's going to be it for me for today, folks. Thank you very much for watching. It's good to be back. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.